letting go doesn't mean that you throw someone or something off a cliff or down the drain or in a garbage disposal or in the trash can. Letting go is about letting go of the attachment in you to things being different. Loving someone does not block you from peace. Love brings us to peace. Expectation steals our peace. And that's a really important distinction. Love will never keep you from peace. Letting go in a loving relationship is not letting go of love. It's letting go of attachment and expectation to someone being different than they are, to them acting in a certain way that's different than how they're acting, or them speaking in a different way that's different from how they're speaking, or them feeling in a different way, them loving you in a different way, them living their lives in a different way. So, when is the right time to let go? Always, actually. Even when things are going well. Because if we hold on when they're going well, and we stay attached and we stay with our expectations, and it's fine because they're doing what we want, well, you're just setting yourself up for frustration, because assuming that those you love are humans, and assuming that you are still human, as in not fully and completely enlightened and having transcended all of that which makes us human, there will come a time, probably in the not too distant future, when they do something that isn't what you want. Through their actions, through their words, through their choices, through their feelings. And if you've held on all this time while it was going well, and you've equated love with obedience, or you've equated love with fulfillment of your desires, then the minute that they don't do what you want, peace is gone. You feel miserable. This is when we fall in love and we fall out of love. Right? So we should always let go of attachments and expectations. Before you need to. Don't wait till you're in pain. Let go of them now. Love people in your life as essence, as soul, as spirit, as divinity, rather than how well they dance according to your tune. It'll make your relationships that are already going well, it'll make them so much deeper and richer. And the relationships that are not going well, it'll bring so much more peace and acceptance to them. And sometimes we may let go of a relationship. But you don't ever have to let go of love. Just because someone may not be necessarily someone with whom at this point in time and space it's healthy to stay in relationship, doesn't mean you have to let go of love. Love is the energy, the juice, the ras, the essence through which we blossom. So love, by all means love. But love without that expectation. Love without that attachment. Because love itself never steals peace. Love gives peace. Let go of that which is stealing your peace, which again is not the other person's actions. We think, oh, I was so peaceful and then you came home. Or, I was in such a good mood and then you talked to me. Sometimes you'll hear people say things like, oh, can't talk to that person because it'll steal my peace. Well, that's not our highest goal. I recognize we need to do that at certain times in our life, on our path, protect ourselves. But you've got to recognize that our highest goal is to be able to be anywhere and still be in peace. So let go of that which blocks the peace, not the love. Yes, there was a question back there. Yes, Jimmy.
Namaste, dearest Guru Sadhviji. This question comes from my sister Lil in Panama. There's a growing fad in the West of protein diets, Atkins, keto, etc.
Yeah.
What happens to us spiritually when we eat animals?
Great question. First of all, since the topic of vegetarianism and veganism is one of my favorite topics anyway, I want to just speak to the protein myth for a quick moment, and then we'll come to the spiritual aspect that you asked about. What happens to us spiritually when we eat animals? Biology 101. Human biology 101. What protein does, the role of protein in the body, is it builds bone, it builds muscle, it builds us. It's like, that's why if you're going to become a bodybuilder, a weightlifter, you need protein because you're looking to actually build muscle. What is the time of our life when we're building the most bone and muscle? Think about it. It's not a trick question. What's the time of our life when we're, when we're a child, exactly. The younger we are, the faster we're growing. Right? Raise your hand if you're a parent in here. So you've watched a newborn grow. The smaller they are, the faster they grow. Until eventually we get to a point where we stop growing entirely and we start shrinking. But the time of our life that we are growing the fastest is when we are newborn. Growing very fast. What is God's most perfect food for a newborn? Mother's milk. Not any milk, mother's milk. Right? Any arguments here? Anybody think that mother's milk maybe is not the most perfect food for a newborn? Right? Mother's milk. Now, does anybody know what percent protein mother's milk is? At the time of our life when we are doing our most building of bones and muscles and cells, what percent protein is mother's milk? Any idea? 5. Okay. Mother's milk is 5% protein. So at the time of our life, when our building needs are the highest, the most perfect food that God has created is 5% protein. And yet, these diets will have you convinced that as a full-grown couch potato, you should have 30% protein. Okay? So, recognize the fallacy. I am most definitely not a conspiracy theorist, and yet I will tell you that there is absolutely a lot of financial and economic cahoots, you could say, amongst the meat and dairy industries, the producers of a lot of this, and the government institutions, especially in America, who are telling us, who are giving us what we call the USRDA, which is the recommended daily allowance, how much protein you should have, how much carbs you should have, how much fat is okay. Much of the research done by the USRDA is funded by the meat and dairy industry. Okay. So I wanted to just mention that first. Spiritually, when we eat animals, here's what happens. Imagine that at this moment, as we sit here very peacefully, suddenly from one of these doors, a gunman or 10 gunmen or a tiger or a wild elephant come in the doors. Now what's going to happen to us? We're going to run, we're going to scream, we're going to hide behind couches. Maybe the brave ones amongst us are going to try to fight off the gunmen or the tigers. But our what's called the sympathetic nervous system in our body gets activated. It's the nervous system in which we either fight, or we flee, or we freeze. Those are the three reactions when we are under stress and fear. We fight, we flee, or we freeze. Now, in order to fight or to flee, lots of chemical reactions have to happen in our bodies. One thing that happens is all of the blood, the energy, what we call ojas, that sacred energy in our bodies, moves from the internal systems to the extremities, so that our arms and our legs have lots of blood flow, lots of energy, so I can run fast. Or so I could fight off a lion or a shark or a robber. It shuts down our digestive system, our circulatory system, our reproductive system. Now that's fine if it's for half an hour. But this is why, for example, and it's a separate topic, I won't go into it too much, but it's why being constantly stressed ruins your digestion, ruins your reproductive system, ruins all of the systems in the body, because when we think that we need to fight or flee, our internal systems shut down. Okay, so that's the biology of it. Now, the reason and the way that it happens, because it's not like my brain goes, oh, there's a tiger. Okay, what should I do? Should I run? Doesn't happen like that. I would be tiger dinner by that time. It happens automatically, long before you even recognize that's a tiger. You're running away or you're hiding, you're fighting. Like, it happens automatically. That's why it's called the autonomic nervous system. It's happening automatically. It doesn't require the mental thinking mind to be engaged. It happens through chemistry. The chemistry that floods the body, we call it adrenaline, kicks all of this into motion. Now, I mention this because animals also have it. When an animal is about to be killed, just like if we are about to be killed, its body is flooded with the same hormones. Now, when you kill the animal, those hormones lodge in the tissues. Hormones are carried by the bloodstream. They go into the tissues. Here they are in the muscles of my arms and legs so I can run. But if you kill me before all of that adrenaline has left my body, well, it's still there in my tissues. If you then eat my tissues, as you digest them, those chemicals go into your bloodstream. along with the protein, along with the fat, along with the antibiotics, along with all of whatever we've injected these animals with, goes into our bloodstream. Our brain does not necessarily have the capacity to distinguish between adrenaline that is flooding my bloodstream because I have ingested the tissues of an animal that was terrified, or the adrenaline that is flooding my bloodstream because a tiger has just walked in that door. And this is one of the really big reasons that we are seeing so much anxiety, so much restlessness, so much of this kind of low grade, I just can't sit still, I'm on edge, I'm afraid. And why we are so constantly engaged in a survival mechanism. Someone steals our parking space, and so we have to park, 15 feet over this way. And suddenly our whole survival mechanism is, I'll show you, who do you think you like? And we go and are banging on the guy's windshield, and people kill each other over parking spaces. Now, nobody in their rational mind would even consider that. But we are flooded constantly with these non-rational, automatic, nervous system chemistries that are telling us your life is in danger. Be afraid. Be on edge. Everything's a threat. And so we live our lives like that. So that's one reason it's really bad for your spiritual practice. I haven't even come to karma yet. This is just the chemistry of why it's bad for you. Like, we know what sugar does to our body. We know what alcohol does to our body. We know the impact on our mental state of things that we eat. Eat a really heavy meal, even a beautiful vegetarian meal, but eat a heavy, beautiful, Italian meal at 9 o'clock at night, and then get up at 4 in the morning and try to meditate. You'll see why people on spiritual paths eat differently. Now, there's nothing ethically or morally or spiritually wrong about a beautiful Italian vegetarian feast of pasta. But it doesn't work very well when you try to get up the next morning to meditate. Everything that we take in has an impact on us, chemically. The impact of that meat is that it's also, those of you familiar with what we speak of as gunas, that which is sattvic, or balanced, light, that which is rajasic, full of passion and energy, but not necessarily in such a fantastic way when it's consumed. And that which is tamasic, full of what we speak of as tamas, which is an energy of sloth, lethargy, stuckness. Well, meat is tamas. So it brings that energy. So if you find yourself like you just can't generate the willpower to get up in the morning and meditate, you just can't generate the energy to make a change in your life, just 5 more minutes, I'm going to scroll TikTok. Then really, I'm going to pull out my Bhagavad Gita. And 5 minutes becomes 10, becomes half an hour, becomes an hour, and then you fall asleep. That energy is a tamasic energy. Eating meat brings that energy into the body as well. So on all of those levels, and then of course the karmic level is obvious. Choice that is violent. Consciously, I had other options available. It's not self-defense. I made a conscious choice for harm. To be part of a system of supply and demand in which violence is wrought against animals, and not only against animals, but against Mother Nature, against our rainforests, against our trees, against our planet, our water, against other human beings who are starving to death. Because the meat industry is violent not only to the animals, but it's violent to the planet. It's the single greatest cause of global warming. It's one of the most biggest contributors to world hunger, to water shortages, to the destruction of our rainforest. I mean, the Amazon rainforest is being deforested at the rate of somewhere of 1 acre every 1 to 3 seconds. I've heard some statistics that say every 1 second, some statistics that say every 3 seconds. But even if you say every 3 seconds, think about how fast that rainforest is being deforested. And for what? Hamburgers. It's not oil, it's not wood, it's not homes for the indigenous, it's hamburgers. It's land to graze cows that become hamburgers. So, on all of those levels, I mean, I could go on all night about that, but that should be enough to understand whether you come at it from a spiritual perspective, you come at it from just an ethical, a moral, a value-based perspective, or even you come into it with a selfish perspective of just, hey, I want to be in peace. I want to stop feeling stressed out and restless and on edge. I want to have energy. So we avoid the meat. We choose that which is healthy for us and our planet, that which is nonviolent. Yeah, beautiful. Other questions? Yes.
Namaste. My name is Abhinav. So you know how things like worshipping God is considered spiritual? Is it possible for something deadly like martial arts to be considered spiritual as well?
Is it possible for something?
Something like martial arts, something which is more deadly.
Okay. Spirituality is who you are. Grocery shopping can be spiritual. Walking through the park can be spiritual. It's a big mistake to box up activities and to say, this is my spiritual activity, and this is my not spiritual activity. Ultimately, ideally, everything you do should be spiritual because of how you do it. Your work should be spiritual. Your family life should be spiritual. Spending time with your friends should be spiritual. Spirituality doesn't mean only the prayers and the rituals and the mantras and the chanting. Spirituality means as I am moving through my world, whether I'm learning martial arts or I'm learning dance or I'm doing yoga or I'm running on a treadmill or I'm running through the park or I'm grocery shopping or I'm driving in my car, whatever I'm doing it with the awareness that I am spirit, the truth of who I am, the core of who I am, is not separate from the divine. And therefore is not separate from anything. And so that's my attention as I'm moving through my world, whatever I'm doing. So everything we do gets done from that perspective. And it doesn't mean that you can't learn beautiful martial arts. It's a wonderful art. Play a great game of tennis. Doesn't mean that because you're spiritual, you let the other guy win. It's not about that. It's a game. You're playing a game. You're enjoying the game. But at the same time, with every breath, as you move through your life, remember who you are, so that it's not like you're playing tennis and you hit the ball into the net and you say to yourself, oh, you're such an idiot, you're awful, and you hate the other guy. I'll show you next time. Not that. That you remember. You remember who you are. So you're able to play a game, enjoy a game, no problem. And martial arts is beautiful. It can be very spiritual. There's many cultures in which martial arts are a spiritual practice. Like we take yoga. There's cultures where their martial arts actually are their physical, spiritual practices. But what it means is as you're doing it, you're not thinking about, killing the other guy. You're allowing the breath to flow through the body, reminding you of who you are, in alignment with the energies of the universe. Yeah, absolutely it can be spiritual. So can going to school, doing your homework, like literally. Everything we do should be spiritual, because we should carry our spirituality into it so that life becomes spiritual. Otherwise, it becomes very difficult. Like, this is my spiritual practice over here, and this is everything else over here. Then life becomes really difficult. Then you start saying things like, oh, I can't go grocery shopping because, I'm a spiritual person. No, go grocery shopping, take out the trash, shovel the snow, sweep the driveway. Sadhviji showed us how to sweep in a very spiritual way. Do your martial arts in a spiritual way. Absolutely. Beautiful. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes. Namaste. We'll take this as our last question this evening.
So, can you say something about the enlightened people and how, if it's a goal in our lives, or different kinds of enlightened people?
Huh?
Sorry, my question, I don't...
That's okay, I understand. Enlightened people.
Because there are so many archetypes of this, so I
Beautiful.
want to know.
So, Pujya Swamiji always says, he says, enlightenment does not mean that you grow horns on your head. Yes. Officially enlightened, he's got the horns. No. He says it literally just means you live in light. Right? We live in light. We believe that the core of who you are is light. Darkness is of ignorance. We don't believe in original sin, but we believe in ignorance. And the ignorance makes us identify not as the core light, not as the core divinity, but as the body. As what it looks like, what it does, what's happened to it, what it thinks, what it feels. And so we live like that and we suffer. And we bring suffering to others. The path of enlightenment is a path of removing the darkness of ignorance. Right? That's what the guru does. The word guru, the actual Sanskrit word guru, means the one who removes the darkness and brings light. That's the path of enlightenment, is that we remove that darkness and we live in the light of truth. Now the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagwan Krishna gives us very clear ways. Arjuna asks him this question, right? What does a yogi actually look like? Like, okay, you've told me what to do, you've told me the truth, but what does it look like when a being like that moves through the world? And Bhagavan Krishna gives us long lists. But they're simple things. They're not like can walk on water, manifest things for you, doesn't need to sleep or eat. Nothing like that. It's things like they're a friend to all. They live in balance, in success and failure, gain and loss. Meaning they're anchored into something that is deeper than the ups and downs of the stock market. It's someone who lives in compassion and caring, giving to all, in that friendship. These are the markers. It's one, there's a beautiful teaching, says it's one to whom a brick of gold, a lump of clay, and a handful of dirt are the same. And it's such an interesting teaching because the more we practice yoga, the more we meditate, the deeper we go, the more refined our ability for discrimination becomes. First in the body and the breath, but then in our lives. So he's not saying that the enlightened one is one who cannot tell the difference between this, heavy solid brick and this sand and wet clay. He's not saying that. But what he means is that in terms of their relevance to you, in terms of their impact on you, they're the same. Most of us would be like, dirt, clay, gold, right? But to the enlightened one, to the yogi, they're one and the same. Nothing has any more of an impact or relevance, a pull toward us. We're not grabbing or grasping. So think about things like balance all the time. Whatever happens in the outer world, balanced, anchored. Think about one who is a friend to all, who wherever they go, people, animals, nature, no discrimination. Not like, oh, you're like me, you're us, you're them. No us and them. No selfishness. Giving and caring and sharing. And who's always anchored and grounded. Living in that truth. Who knows who they are. Who knows that they're not the body. That they're not the story. That they're not the narrative. That they're not other people's projections. That they're not any of these things. But who's living in that state of Sat, which is existence or truth, Chit, consciousness, but being conscious of consciousness. Consciousness is there whether you're conscious of it or not. But conscious that I am conscious of my consciousness, and Anand, bliss. That becomes our state. That's the enlightened one. But the good news is it's not either or, it's not black or white, it's not nothing till suddenly everything. It's a path. And every step you take gets you closer and closer and closer. Every time that you can look in a mirror and not make some comment to yourself about either how beautiful or handsome or hot you look or how ugly or awful you look, that you can just look and not react to the body. That you can walk down a street and see your reflection in something and not not have a judgment or an assessment of who you are based on a reflection that you see in a window. That you can meet others and not think about them based on their color or their size or their shape. But that you can just slowly, slowly start to move through your life knowing I am soul. I am divinity. I am perfection. Yeah, I have a body. I have a story. I have stuff I'm working through. But it isn't who I am. It's just part of this karmic package. And so you don't get stuck in it. It's a state of remembering. It's a state of remembering. That as you look at the world stops being objects. Most of us see the world as objects, either things that we want or things that we want to push away, what we call rag and dvesh. Likes, desires, and aversions. Slowly, as you walk the path, you stop seeing the world as objects. And you start seeing it as spirit, as other waves in the same ocean. The same ocean of consciousness, the same ocean of love, the same ocean of oneness. And your perspective slowly, slowly, slowly changes. Wonderful. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening. A beautiful day to our family joining us online. And I look so forward to being together with you again tomorrow. And so much love to you all.